Hi, everybody in podcast land and also on YouTube. I'm James.
I'm Dave.
I'm Riley.
And today on the Carpool Critics Movie Podcast, we are continuing our coverage of The Lord of the Rings with The Two Towers. And
did I do a spoiler alert last time?
yeah, you did. Give us another one.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, thank you. That was okay, I guess. Next week, if you're part of our convoy who likes to watch the movies ahead of time, next week we are going to be doing Wonder Woman 1984. Everybody voted. That's what was picked.
I mean, I'm excited.
I actually am too. I haven't even seen Wonder Woman yet. I'm going to watch it this weekend.
Nice.
I'm getting jacked up for this.
Okay, wait, no. You're too enthusiastic. Now I'm less excited.
Whatever, man. There's another movie launching on Christmas Day that's not Wonder Woman. It's Pixar's Soul. We are going to cover that the following week. Okay, but today, all day, it's Lord of the Rings, despite this being the Christmas episode. So for all you Christmas people, like we said before, we are going to end this episode with a little vignette where we talk about our favorite Christmas movies.
Oh, I didn't prepare for that at all. Hey!
3 categories, and you'll have to come up with them on the spot.
David
Nice.
has a spreadsheet, of
I
course.
can do
No,
that.
no.
Lord of the Rings 100% is a Christmas movie. Okay? All of them.
No.
Just deal with it.
No.
It's okay. I saw an article before now. I just saw an article pop up. I didn't even ask for it. It was
Harry
just like,
Potter's more of a Christmas movie than
Why
Lord of the
Rings
Rings
are the best Christmas movies.
Yeah.
I didn't read it, but
They're
it
great
was
for the
there.
pandemic because all you have is time.
Yeah.
And you're like, eat my time. Take
feel good.
Take all the time, Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
David, what are you giving The Two Towers out of 10?
The Two Tower asks the most important question in film history. Can you stay silent when Viggo breaks his toe when he kicks that orc helmet so you know his scream was real? Or are you normal?
Oh my
9.6 out of 10.
Wow. Wait.
I gave it a 9.8 last time.
Oh, okay. So this is slightly...
But we are dealing in very much minutia. This is such a good movie that is very beloved to me. 9.6 is very high, and I love it.
I love that you included that in your slogan because this time I what do you call it? Resisted saying it.
Nice.
But I did bring up that there were the animators bickered about whether they should animate Smeagol with traditional animation, mechanical setting keyframes and stuff, and Andy Serkis wanted to mocap everything.
Yeah.
So I said that to Lauren, and Lauren's like, I know.
You've told me that before.
I've told you that a million times.
You get the same
But
commentary.
I resisted the boot kick thing.
He broke his toe.
Yeah, that wasn't planned.
Yeah.
The scream was real.
I love it.
Riley.
Look, if I wanted to watch a man and a girl with pointy ears make out for 30 minutes, I would search cosplay on Pornhub.
But it's all been taken down.
Is what I would say if I was really upset, but I'm not because this movie's awesome. I cried multiple times. It's great. 9 out of 10. I gave Fellowship 9.25, so I agree. It's just slightly.
Slightly.
Yeah.
So slightly.
Wait, you actually cried on the rewatch multiple times?
Oh, dude.
It's so good.
The music.
Sam's speech? Oof.
Oh, we'll get into it.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
Oh, we will. Okay, The Two Towers drops you right into the story and then doesn't let you go until way past your bedtime. Seriously, the extended version is actually too long.
Yeah.
It's too long. 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I gave the first one a 9+ to give myself some headroom. This one, I was thinking about it, I gave The Dark Knight Rises 8.5. And I was like, wait, is this actually worse than Dark Knight Rises? Kind of no, but also kind of
Wait, you gave Dark Knight Rises 8.5.
So I'm watching this, I'm like,
You son of a
this
bitch.
movie's kind of, there's a lot in this movie that I don't want to watch.
You think
And to be clear, you watched the extended cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
My
There's a
rating
lot-
is
yeah.
specific to the
Okay.
extended cut
Yeah.
right now.
We should clarify that because I, again, watched the theatrical cut.
I think it's definitely the best one.
What did you watch?
I watched the extended cut as well.
Oh, okay.
I watched it over 2 nights though, so I was more prepared to just sit in kind of the added universe stuff.
Right.
I will say across the board, you can tell when it's an extended scene, not just by knowledge, but by the
Quality?
By quality, the writing is usually worse. There's usually a cheesy joke or two. It's pretty
The
clear.
problem though is that it's not clear cut. Again, there's scenes that I really want to stay in there. All the Boromir stuff, all the extended Aragorn stuff, really, except for maybe they could have slimmed the
Trimmed it.
Arwen stuff is a little too long.
Exactly.
But all the Ent stuff, it's this.
Yeah,
Who
the
cares?
extra-
What?
Merry and
extra
Pippin,
poem.
stop.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that stuff.
Who's taller? I'm taller.
Oh man, I have so
lame.
much to say about that after we do a thing.
This message from our sponsor, Private Internet Access VPN. PIA helps you hide your true IP address so that you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 10 devices at once, and it includes an internet kill switch
I'm at 17.
in case your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a Chrome extension. Lauren. So check it out at lmg.gg/carpoolcritics. That's it. One sponsor today.
Okay.
Let's go.
I'm going to check her browser to see if she's got it installed.
Okay, wait a second. This is something I wondered. The scene where Merry and Pippin get engulfed in tree roots,
That's extended.
the trees are
Yeah.
waking up and they swallow them. That's extended.
Yeah.
Okay, but later on, when the battle is won at Helm's Deep and all the Uruk-hai flee, they
Yeah.
flee into the woods,
That's
and then
extended.
then you
Yeah.
see the trees eat them. That's also extended.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the theatrical cut, you just don't know where those orcs go. Do they even flee, or do you just
don't even-
do you
you
assume
see
they
them-
killed them all?
You see them
You
kind
assume
of
they kill
start to
them
run
all.
away.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
But it's like a quick shot. And then it's
I
over.
don't hate that shot, but I don't like it. It feels like
The
kind of
trees?
off. Yeah, the trees eating them.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels off.
I think
It's a bit
cool.
off because it's like the trees in the absolute foreground don't move, and the ones in the far background don't move, and the ones in the middle kind of just juggle.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you're
that's
like,
because if the ones in the front were moving, then the orcs would
yeah.
stop running in.
It's fair.
no, I get it, but
And I think it also.
I understand the logic, but it's just the kind of thing when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, I understand. If I was going to make this shot, I'd do
how
it
I
that
would
way
do it.
too. That looks easier.
Yeah.
but
To me,
it
it's
just doesn't end up looking.
yeah, it's one of those shots that I think was a good idea to do, but then they saw it and they're like, yeah, probably let's take it out.
I think it's a cool payoff because throughout the movie they're kind of teasing like the trees and Fangorn like being alive and like
Yeah.
moving and singing and talking or whatever. So
That's
like,
fair. And if you
we
take
don't-
that out, the Ents do their stuff, but you don't really see the trees do
yeah,
anything.
we see the Ents move, but we
Yeah.
never see like what it actually looks like, what that means if a forest is moving around.
Boy, do they
And they're like-
move. The Ents are so cool.
Yeah,
But-
you said you don't like the Ents.
I didn't say that. I don't like the
added extra scenes.
If you take all the scenes from the Ents and Merry and Pippin and you boil it down to like, let's write out what happens in these scenes, and then I have to explain to somebody really quick. It's like there's like 90 seconds of content in probably 10 minutes.
Which is really funny because when I was writing the synopsis, which I'll get to in a second, that's exactly what happened. Because I remembered the Ent scenes like taking up a bunch of time in the movie, but then the summary is like 2 sentences.
Because here's the thing about the Ents. When they're talking to Merry and Pippin are like, come on, you're so boring.
Yeah.
But I'm experiencing that too. So
Yeah.
why the hell do I want to watch something boring?
Oh, really? I think it kind of plays for comedy.
It does once.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's a couple times, and like I'm split on the kind of scenic shots with the music and the poem. Like, and part of me is like that could work, where it's like this kind of like pause, this interlude in the movie to kind of give you a breather, and it's just like kind of an artistic moment.
Wait, which one are you talking about?
In the extended cut, there's basically as they're walking, he reads them his poem he wrote or whatever.
Right. Okay.
But I just glaze over. I just
Well,
totally lose.
I don't think you can
focus.
complain about that kind of stuff in the extended edition because you're asking for it. It's like if you don't want that extra stuff, then you should watch the theatrical version. But if you're watching the
100%.
extended, like the assumption is that you're sitting down to watch the extended
You're
because
right.
you're a big fan. You want
You're
this
right.
extra stuff. You know?
Well, I don't know, because it's okay. We really have to do the synopsis, but just to close this off, it's not like the extended has everything they ever shot involved. They still have to make a decision: is this good enough for
Yeah.
this cut or not? And for some, I just think that some of the extra scenes definitely are good enough, and some of them just like, nah, they should.
Like
have
I like the funeral of Theoden's kid. That the added extra little bit of that I think adds a
Oh.
breathing moment.
Wait, but that's in
before-
the theatrical.
Not Eowyn singing.
Oh no.
Actually, I have a comment about that. Let's do that after the synopsis.
Okay,
Yes.
here we go. There's a long one, guys. Here we go. The Fellowship is broken. Boromir and Gandalf have fallen, while Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas pursue the Uruk-hai who captured Merry and Pippin. Gollum, a former bearer of the One Ring, tracks Frodo and Sam on their journey, but they capture him and allow him to guide them into Mordor. In Rohan, the Uruk-hai are ambushed by Rohirrim, allowing Merry and Pippin to escape into Fangorn Forest. Meeting Aragorn's group, the Rohirrim's leader Éomer explains that he and his men were exiled by Rohan's king, Theoden, who was under the control of Sauron and his servant, Grima Wormtongue. Searching for the hobbits in Fangorn, Aragorn's group is shocked to meet Gandalf the White, resurrected after his fight with the Balrog. Gandalf leads them to Rohan's capital, Edoras, where he frees Theoden from Sauron's control. Learning of Sauron's plans to destroy Rohan, Theoden evacuates his people to the fortress of Helm's Deep.
Deep. The kids call it the Deep.
My king, you must take the people to Helm's Deep. Gandalf leaves to find Éomer, hoping his horsemen will fight for their restored king.
Aragorn befriends Theoden's niece Eowyn, who becomes infatuated with him, but he's still stuck in his feelings about Arwen. When the refugees traveling to Helm's Deep are attacked by warg riders, Aragorn falls off a cliff and is presumed dead, but he's saved by Brego, a horse he had befriended and set free in Edoras, and the two set off for Helm's Deep. Cute! In Fangorn, Merry and Pippin meet Treebeard and the Ents, who decide not to do the whole war thing, but Pippin asks Treebeard to take them in the direction of Isengard, where they witness the deforestation caused by Sauron's war effort. Enraged, Treebeard and the Ents overwhelm Isengard, trapping Sauron in his tower. Taking the back road into Mordor, Frodo, Sam, and Gollum are captured by Boromir's brother Faramir and his rangers. Learning of the One Ring, Faramir takes his captives to the besieged city of Osgiliath, believing the ring could save Gondor. Aragorn gets to Helm's Deep, followed by elf reinforcements sent by Elrond to honor the old alliances, followed by the Uruk-hai, and the battle begins. A long night of fighting ensues, and hope seems lost. But at dawn, as the defenders are overwhelmed, Gandalf, Éomer, and his Rohirrim arrive, winning the battle. The surviving Uruk-hai flee into Fangorn Forest and are killed by them crazy trees. In Osgiliath, a Nazgul nearly captures Frodo, but he is saved by Sam. Impressed by the hobbits' resolve, Faramir releases them to continue their journey. And then it's over.
And that's not where the book ends, though. I remember.
Yes, there's differences.
The book ends with Shelob the spider and all that, right?
Shelob is in.
one.
It's interesting because the book is longer on both ends. More things happen. So Boromir actually dies in the beginning of this one in the book, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And there's also Shelob at the end, so like more stuff is in the book. That we
I think
didn't see.
they nailed it though to make it feel like each movie is a full package, because that's always the danger when you have like a series that like each movie doesn't feel like it warrants an entire movie.
Well, they also have this fractal quality where each movie is its own like 3-act structure with a beginning, middle, end, but then each one of them serves as a piece in this larger narrative where the Fellowship is like act 1 of the whole thing, and then this one is part of act 2 of the whole thing, and then it goes on, because act 2 is always the longest act in a story. They're not actually divided by 3. It's usually like 25% is act 1, 50% is act 2, and then 25% is act 3. And so you kind of see that in this movie. I think the midpoint of the whole thing is maybe that weird interlude where suddenly you have Galadriel talking again and giving a little like pep talk. Is that in the theatrical version?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, everybody, the narrator's back. Here's what's going on with everybody. So,
Yeah, and I'm also confused about what all these flashbacks mean. Like these kind of like fading in and out of like the elves talking. Like, are they psychic? Can they like psychically talk to each other?
I thought so. That's how I interpreted it.
But then like I thought that when the first flashback to Aragorn and Arwen, I thought he was like dreaming and they were like having a psychic video call or something.
Yeah, they take the motivation of the dream to cut back, but then they stay long enough, certainly in the extended version, that it feels longer than a dream would allow in a film.
Oh man.
Because there's like 5 or 6 scenes in that flashback, and
Yeah.
I don't not like them, but it feels long. And
Are there even more of those in the extended version?
it's longer.
Jeez. I mean, I've seen the extended. Probably the version I've seen the most is the extended version, but like, man, it's long enough in the frickin' theatrical version. I just feel like we have to talk about this because obviously we love this movie.
Yep.
We all think it's great. What did you guys think about the extra time spent on this like Aragorn and Arwen relationship? Because we said in the past movie that it feels kind of weird. Like it feels kind of forced. We don't really feel like we know their relationship or see a justification for it.
I think it still feels more like exposition than kind of experiential or emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of like, this is what's going to happen. This is why you can't do this. This is why you can't do that. And it's good information to have. And if you don't know, it's nice to see it. But as someone who has seen the extended versions before, I don't think it's necessary to rewatch.
it's not necessary, but I like the emotional element it brings. Like whenever we see that necklace that represents it, and like he loses it, and then someone gives it back to him, he's like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
I like that. I like the dynamic where there's this Rohan chick, Eowyn, is there, and she's digging on him, and he's just like, "You have no idea what I'm going through right now."
Yeah.
And so I like having that. I can't remember because honestly, I think I've only seen them Return of the King like twice. I don't remember what part Arwen plays in that movie.
She is a pretty important part.
So this is going to
Return of the
culminate.
King?
Yeah.
So the fact that she's still in Middle Earth, it's like it's going to culminate in something. There's a reason.
Well, yes.
Sort of.
Yes.
We don't need to get into it because that's a different episode. But
Yeah.
if it doesn't, if it's just like here's all this backstory that's just like who cares, then that's kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think it just feels extra weird to me because despite the fact that Eowyn isn't his girlfriend or whatever, she's like
into him in this movie, and I almost like their connection more because she's a strong woman character. She's like, she's training with a sword, and he comes up and he's like, hey, you have some skill with a blade. And she's like, the women of this country learned long ago that even if you don't have a sword, you can still die by one or whatever. And he's like, okay, cool.
And that's why they have that fast forward thing. Did you notice that?
Huh?
Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah.
They lock blades, and then she does a move where she goes like, huh, and brings it from kind of the midnight position like down to 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Do a little sword move, but they speed it up, and you can tell it looks fast forwardy because otherwise it just would have looked so lame.
Yeah, it's too slow.
I guess they just went too slow.
Wait, so there's Eowyn, who's the elf woman.
No, Arwen is.
Arwen and
the
Eowyn.
elf.
Yeah. I hate that scene with Eowyn when she serves him the stew.
And he has it's too hot, and
No, it's disgusting, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's disgusting.
And he can't eat it.
Extended. That's
and
an extended one.
the point is that they give you the exposition of how he's why his life is extended, but how they do it so bad. She's like, how old are you? She's like 60, 70, 80.
You can't be 80.
You can't be 80. 87. Oh, you're one of these, which
The
means this,
Dunedain.
which means that,
Yeah.
which means this information, and it's just like,
yeah.
I didn't.
But again-
I didn't think it was that bad for the exposition
I hated it.
part of it. Maybe it's because I already knew that stuff, so it wasn't like information spoon fed to me.
Yeah.
But what I thought was kind of cringe was like, why does this scene have comic relief? The fact that it's disgusting, and then he tries to pour it out. Because I was like, he's a ranger. The guy eats mud. Probably.
Yeah.
He's like Bear Grylls. Like, eat the soup. I don't see him as being picky, so it seemed contrived. Like, we need some comic relief in this part of the movie, so we'll put some in.
That's probably why that one got shelved more so than the problematic, boring exposition or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
Again, though, it's an extended scene. I don't think you can complain about it.
That's fair. You're right, and it is what it is.
You're not allowed to.
I think this movie has a bit more, in comparison to the first movie, of a tonal problem with regards to comedic relief.
Oh, let's talk about this.
Do you want to go into it?
But let's finish this Eowyn thing first.
Yes, please.
Because it just really bothers me how long it spends on Aragorn and Arwen's relationship, because it doesn't mean anything for the plot. And maybe it means something in the next movie, but we don't see it in this one. And what does it add to his character in terms of what he's actually trying to accomplish in this movie? His character, the things that he's struggling with are his kingship, whether he actually wants to return to the throne. He's trying to defend people in a world that has given up hope on itself. And I don't know how Arwen adds to those things
I think
in any way.
to me, it speaks a lot to what I think would be the primary theme of this entry in the series, where it's all about hope and keeping hope, even more than Fellowship and even more than Return of the King. And so I think her arc is for Aragorn, it's about keeping the hope, but she's kind of the opposite. She loses the hope and gives up and goes away, and then you have to play with that in the next movie. But I think that story and the way they lean into it helps to serve that bigger theme that they're trying to service.
Yeah,
in this
that
movie.
may be true, but I'm kind of with Riley where it doesn't bring the hero closer or farther from their visible goal.
Yes.
That's
and
fair.
so it's kind of extraneous in that regard.
The arcs for all of these characters are so tight, Especially talking about the whole series as well. We know that Merry, Pippin, Boromir, Faramir, all of these kind of side characters get something. Okay, well, actually, Legolas and Gimli less so.
Comic relief.
But we'll get to that.
Comic relief in action.
A lot of so many of the side characters get satisfying arcs and plot relevant things to do and worry about and think about. But this is one of the main characters, and this relationship doesn't add any of that. I don't know. It's just frustrating.
I think it helps to serve the mythical element, though, because he is the prophesied king, and he needs to kind of have a weird mystical romance. And
and that's why Eowyn's so basic, right?
Yeah.
He's like, get out of here, lady. You don't know the kind of women I'm dealing with.
Well, it's funny.
They're thousands of years old.
It's funny
I'm in love with an elf princess.
Yeah, I think it's a story from the 30s. It makes sense that he goes with the mysterious princess, but I think a postmodern story, he would have ended up with Eowyn. I think he would have ended up with the functional badass fighter.
I guess so. It's not so much that I'm not bothered by the fact that he didn't end up with Eowyn. I just think that would have been a more interesting story and relationship than him and Harwin. Yeah, Eowyn's freaking sick.
Yeah, she's way more, she's kind of orphaned at a young age. She's pretty well-adjusted adult considering that,
Well, I mean, we understand her more. She's a human, whereas Arwen is a mysterious elf that has powers we do not understand.
She was way ahead of the curve with the big lips, though, hey?
This is natural, I think, isn't it? I thought that's where
Before
Liv Tyler's
anyone
lips.
was getting injections. Yeah, no, I think that might just be her lips.
God bless her.
I think one thing this movie does really well is it escalates the threat and the scale from the previous movie. Because we all praise the previous movie for, I think, having a fairly contained idea and feeling satisfying as, like you said, a 3-act structure in itself. But they really take what worked and then escalate it in a believable way that, like, really raises the threat, but then helps carry it, like, the momentum they've already built forward. And I don't think that's easy, and I want to praise the movie for that.
You know what the best example of that is? One line that it says it all. Wraiths on wings.
Yeah, that's what I wrote down too. Yeah.
No, that's great escalation too,
Yeah.
because it's just like, I mean, it might be a little bit more than just an incremental rise in intensity there, but like, it sort of is. They could be riding like giant dragons or something, but like, it's not like they breathe fire.
And you get the hint of the King Wraith, right? At this
Right.
one, and then but in the next movie, he's a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
You get orcs into Uruk-hai,
Right.
which
Well,
are a much bigger threat.
Yeah, that's sort of at the end of the last one, I guess.
Yeah, but like you don't get whole armies of Uruk-hai
yeah,
until this one. Yeah,
I
appreciate it.
And I think it does that. It escalates things not only in terms of like the scale and the intensity, but also just in the number of narrative threads that it juggles. And like, I think it does a pretty good job. There are times when it feels like we're being bounced around a bit too much, but for the most part, I mean, I think that we get satisfying narrative journeys for Frodo and Sam and Aragorn and the trio and Merry and Pippin. I mean, whatever. You don't like Merry
Well,
and
I actually
Pippin,
want to ask you guys about Frodo's arc in this one.
Okay.
What is it? I was trying to figure it out. I thought I had something for a while, and now I'm not so sure.
I think that it involves him kind of seeing himself in Gollum and like learning more about what it actually means to be a ring bearer.
Yeah.
Like at the end of Fellowship of the Ring, he kind of comes to this point where he's like, he realizes that it's too much for anyone else, and in order to keep it safe and to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands, he needs to leave. So he gets that this is a burden and that it's important. But I think that coming face to face with Gollum, who is like a dark mirror of what Frodo could become, he pities him, and he kind of like he comes face to face more with that reality.
Yeah, at the beginning, I thought maybe it was about trust. I thought maybe he's too trusting, and like he's bringing Smeagol in, and he's taking the leash off him, and he's giving him more and more trust, while Sam is being like, "Stop it! This is a bad idea. This guy's gonna screw us over."
Yeah.
And but that actually doesn't culminate in what. Like that ended up being like a false theory because it kind of doesn't culminate. But what it does culminate in is the fact when he's yelling at Sam saying like, I need to be like this to Smeagol because I need to believe he's redeemable because this is happening to me.
Right.
And I need to believe that I can be brought back from the brink.
Yeah. I don't, yeah. I mean, I think that that's enough. I don't think that characters necessarily have to like go through a discrete change. Like I used to believe this and now I believe this. But if they sort of change the way that they are thinking about things or have experienced things and have a greater understanding of something, I feel like that counts as an arc.
I think you could make an argument in this movie. I'd say in the series, Frodo is the protagonist of the whole series for sure.
Yeah.
But there might be an argument to be made that in the Two Towers, Aragorn is actually the structural protagonist.
He gets way more
he's way more
time.
active. He has way more change. And maybe that's part of what you're feeling. Because like we can definitely like try and narrow down and identify the little change that Frodo goes through, but it's small changes. It's like being corrupted by the ring. It's like what you said.
Yeah.
And in 1 and 3, he has a lot more change, and I think he's the protagonist in both of those. But maybe they chose to not focus on him to help bring out the best in Aragorn in this one.
Yeah, I guess Aragorn is more active because Frodo kind of he gets taken prisoner. He doesn't get to choose where he goes in large part in this film.
Yeah. They've got some good times.
Okay, that brings up another question, though, which is like, what exactly is the arc that Aragorn goes through? Because we know that there are these kind of thematic moments where they talk about hope and hopelessness and like, oh, there's always hope.
Yeah.
I love the scene where, you know, I was kind of confused at first when they're at Helm's Deep and Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli are all kind of like bashing the farmers because they didn't call for reinforcements, and so they're like they're getting farmers and stable boys and stuff to like they're armored up and getting swords and stuff, and they're
Is that
making
when
fun of them.
Legolas kind of goes despair?
Yeah.
And Legolas is like, look at these people. They're not going to do anything. And they're
Then I
like,
will die as one of them.
yeah. You will die. Yeah.
Everyone's just like, what are they talking about?
Because they're talking in Elvish before that. And then he screams that in English and like, oh, awkward. But I was kind of confused about that. I'm like, why are they just like bashing these people for no reason? It's like, oh, it's because they're kind of like struggling with the hopelessness of the situation. And then
for sure.
we have that scene where the Aragorn sees the kid looking at his sword and stuff.
Sword.
Yeah. And he's like worried about the battle. He's like what, 14?
Yeah,
something
like that.
And he calls him over and he's like, they say there's no hope. They say all hope is lost. And Aragorn's like, give me your sword. And he's like, this is a good sword. There's always hope.
Yeah.
That would give you a good buff,
yeah,
hey?
man,
That would buff
awesome.
you.
He picks up the
+2 for
sword and he
that.
like swings it around. He's like, yeah, it's got a good feel to it, dude. You're gonna do great. And then he gives it back and the kid like looks at the sword and he's like, yeah,
I'm gonna chop some heads with this.
it is a good
Aragorn
sword.
is the best.
I mean, that kid probably dead.
So I guess it
but-
ups Aragorn's proactivity.
Right,
He's
but sorry.
becoming more proactive throughout the series, right? Because at the beginning, he's just Strider. He's estranged. He doesn't want to be the king.
Yep.
He doesn't know if he has what it takes to, does he have Isildur's blood in him? Is he going to fail, or could he destroy the ring if he was given the opportunity?
And I think, it's like his arc in this movie isn't complete, but it's certainly moving towards being a regal king.
And that's the kind of weird thing about the movie, I guess, eh? Like it is in the middle of the series, so we don't get these like distinct arcs for a lot of the characters. Although I would argue that Merry and Pippin have one of the, despite them being a very small part of this movie, they have one of the clearest arcs where like initially we see them try to convince the Ents to like go to war or whatever, and they're like, oh, we're not going to do it. And they're like, oh, and Pippin's like, it's okay, we have the Shire. He's like, there's not going to be a Shire, Pep. He's like, oh. And then Pippin, first Merry like is into it, and then he despairs.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, it's over. But then Pippin's like, oh, there's not going to be a Shire. And he takes it out.
Take us to the south.
Yeah.
I really love that moment when Pippin steps up. And part of it, and it's a huge success this movie does, is it chooses great moments to cut in between people where either like a strong thematic idea connects these two scenes, and like the jump between them strengthens both scenes and the meaning of what you just watched. Like that in particular, where we've been at Helm's Deep and like the people are starting to lose, and then we cut to them in the forest, and it's a nice breather, a nice pacing moment.
Yeah.
But then having the character that's taken it all silly before finally step up and do it means that like this push towards hopefulness really succeeds. And like I think the movie does such a good job all throughout in the entire runtime. All of its cuts are great.
Right.
Actually, talking about cuts, earlier we were talking about the extended scene with Theoden the king's son's funeral.
Yep.
And the extended bit of it is Eowyn singing at the funeral. And that has one of the weirdest, most artistic cuts in the whole trilogy. She's singing, and we're all in the middle of this procession, and then it just ends. It cuts, flash forward, the funeral's over, the gravesite is deserted, and we're just looking at the door of the tomb, and it's over. It was like indie. That cut is
because it's
crazy.
so jarring, but it's powerful because you're left with the silence.
Oh, dang.
But I love that. Might be one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is Theoden and Gandalf talking after, and like Gandalf is trying to console him, but like the grief is too great.
Yeah.
And Theoden can't handle it, and he breaks down crying. Like any scene where you believe a grown man crying I find very powerful.
For sure.
I don't know, something about that scene. It's just simple.
I completely agree because like up to that point we have seen Theoden as this like nasty old almost dead person, and then he comes back and he's like, it's all triumphant. He's like, yeah, I feel my sword again. I'm strong. Like, oh, what's going on? Yeah, get Grima Wormtongue out of here. I have control again. And
He
then
realizes.
shortly after that, we're like, oh man, he's human. And I think that's actually an important scene because Theoden, okay, I don't want to say someone is like emotionally weak for like mourning their son, but like we see in that moment that like Theoden has emotional weakness and that he like is not like Aragorn. I can't imagine Aragorn. No, I guess I can imagine him crying.
It'd be different.
I'm just trying to say that the part of the story in this is Aragorn trying to get Theoden to get over his shit and like do what needs to be done. Like call Gondor for help. Like send your people here. And Theoden's like, no, I'm upset. And he doesn't want to do it because of his emotions. So I feel like that scene maybe kind of, I don't know, plays into that a little bit.
I like in this movie, though, that they don't do the kind of like tropish subplot of them like plotting behind Theoden's back, being like, we can't trust him. He's not doing a good job. We got to do this. Instead, Aragorn like it trusts him and follows his orders.
Although, well,
What do you mean?
I was gonna say something about the next movie, but yeah, in this one they don't go behind his back.
Yeah, but but that's the other guy they go behind the back, isn't it? Like Gondor, Steward of Gondor. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, you're.
Yeah. Then
Wait.
that guy deserves it. That guy sucks.
Well, it's actually Gandalf. Okay, no wait, but this is too far into the next movie.
But I like.
They respect him as a king.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about this series, but certainly this movie, now that the characters know each other, is how much they enjoy each other. Like the look when Gimli first sees Gandalf and he's so happy to see him. I'm like, I buy that. And like there's so much warmth and kindness between these characters that know and love each other.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way to make some of the like more unbelievable stuff feel grounded, is this love that these characters share for each other. And it's just, I think it's why people love rewatching this movie or these movies, is that like they just love, like there's not that many movies that succeed in making people love each other this much.
Yeah, and I think it's even more powerful because they were all strangers. It's like this hodgepodge group of multiple people from multiple backgrounds and races and whatever. So like seeing Gimli look at Gandalf like that, you're like, oh man, that's family. When you're in the Fellowship, you're family.
Well, especially because we went from them thinking that the hobbits were dead and having their journey tracking through the forest and stuff, which is a little excessive.
Okay, I want to talk about the humor. You don't like the humor so much? You said you didn't like the humor in the last one a bit.
Which humor are you talking about?
Well, okay, I'm
Gimli humor.
Mostly Gimli, because Gimli is the main comic relief in this movie.
It's a bit heavy-handed. And I mean, like, we are watching this trying to find things to talk about, and like, it's a good movie, but I think Gimli is the biggest flaw in this movie.
I remember when it came out thinking it was great, though. And I think if it's going to be a 4-quadrant movie, meaning like all ages, all genders are going to like it, you need to have this guy. The jokes are good when all the jokes about him being short, like I can't see and all that. I think it's just because we've seen the movie so many times that you see him coming and you're just
I
like,
guess what I craved,
what I
craved on this rewatch is when is for them to take Gimli a little more seriously at some times, and I feel like they never really give him the opportunity. They always undercut. Like, I mean, I don't want to talk about Helm's Deep yet, but like he's the only one crying when he sees Gandalf. It's like a little bit funny. He's constantly making short people joke. Like, I don't know. It just feels a little too often. And he gets like one kind of cool line that's like undercut by something he does after.
like he's just pigeonholed. Like he doesn't do anything but comedy.
Totally. And it's like, yo, like
What's the cool line?
he's talking about like,
You'll have to toss me.
no, I like that scene. I think that's great. That's a great
Aragorn
joke.
can throw him so far, though. It's like, does he have superhuman strength?
Dude, he's a Dunedain. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he's doing a dime, but is he really strong?
No, I don't know. I mean, whatever.
They
They live a long time.
Like Gimli's probably 200 pounds plus like 80 pounds of armor. Like he throws him
worry
like
about
12
He's
feet.
got,
I don't know.
He's
man.
got good genetics. I'll agree with you that I think a scene where like Gimli kind of like makes himself vulnerable a little bit or something would be kind of cool. Like his race is mostly gone, right? There's very few dwarves left in the world, so like he could kind of like have a moment where he's like, I feel alone or whatever. That's where they could kind of bring up the idea of dwarf women.
You know, he should have a heart-to-heart with somebody who, because a lot of the characters are struggling with being proactive and like rising up to the occasion. It would be great if he convinced somebody to do so by saying, like, "Look, I'm here."
Yeah,
that would be
because
great.
he doesn't have a real reason to be there.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean him and Legolas don't really.
I want to talk about. I guess.
Wait.
Sorry.
The humor.
I want to talk about that.
Okay, go.
And like how in Helm's Deep, I think the use of Gimli kind of actually brings the whole thing down. And hold on, I love the Battle of Helm's Deep. It's one of the best battles in cinematic history. But it starts off with a bunch of good stuff, and then Gimli slides through someone's legs. And then he's like, I'm at 2. Legolas, I'm at 17. He sacks a dude with his axe behind his head.
Yeah, I wrote that down too. Don't need that.
And then Legolas surfs on a fucking shield.
Yeah,
Favorite part of the movie when I was 14.
Yeah.
Don't want it now.
I hate
mean,
the sacking the dude behind his head.
I think even when I was a kid watching this movie, the surfing down on the shield was a little cheesy. Although I will say That's one of the only times in this movie where I'm like, come on. Like all of the battle bits where he sacks him with his axe and they're like bickering about how many kills they're getting. I'm like, that's sick.
No, there's another part. There's a part where I think it's in the warg battle where Legolas mounts a horse in slow motion, and the physics do not make sense.
Okay, so there's 2 parts at least then, because I also wrote down, I'm like, what were they thinking with this shot? Like, did they not? Like, I can understand them trying to do it, you know, and like
what shot?
Doing all the effect, the one you're talking about,
horse one,
where he hooks onto the horse.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I can understand them trying to do this. They film it, they do the effects, and then play it back, and they're like, you know what, guys, this didn't work. Let's cut it out. We can do without it.
Yeah.
But they kept it in for some reason. It looks so bad.
it just doesn't make any sense. The horse is coming from behind him. Okay, he reaches across the horse's chest and grabs the other side of the horse's neck, and because the horse is moving forward, naturally, actually, he would just. His body starts on the right side of the horse, and he would just go whoop onto the horse from the right side. Instead, he like goes shoop underneath it. It's
because
flipping
in front of the horse.
In front of the horse, and he mounts it from the left side. But it makes his arm go in the direction that your arm doesn't move stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, how am I gonna get leverage that way? It doesn't make any sense.
If you haven't seen the movie and you're trying to imagine this, it's because it doesn't make sense. Or you're trying to imagine it unsuccessfully. It's because it doesn't make sense. It's like even seeing it in real life. And also his movements look so jerky.
Yeah.
Like the animation is weird.
They didn't have the technology to do that kind of stuff. Because like they did it in Return of the King when the technology is even a little bit better, and it's so fucking
They did
bad.
what?
The full body replacement like on the elephants.
Right. Ugh. The elephant stuff doesn't look...
It looks terrible.
Well, you can tell that
That's
it's
a different
CGI.
movie.
It's a different movie. You're right.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what I like in this movie is when they set up Elrond is going to reforge Andoril when he looks at that painting of Isildur holding the broken blade.
Did they do that?
I love it.
Is that in the
extended?
flashback?
Maybe. I don't know. But
I don't
I love
remember.
that shot. I was like, ooh, that's setting it up.
Oh, nice
man.
setup.
Okay, wait. A couple more. Just the Gimli. We left the Gimli
You're
thing
right.
too much.
Let's go back to Gimli.
His lines about running, like, I'm wasted on cross country. We dwarves are natural sprinters.
That's a great line.
I like that.
Falls off the horse. Like, he's talking about dwarf women. He's like, people think that dwarves just spring out of holes in the ground, huh? Which is ridiculous. And then he falls off. And he's like, it was deliberate. It was deliberate.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And then, wait. Oh, yeah, shall I describe it to you or shall I find you a box? And then it's just like the shot holds on Gimli for a second. He's like, ha!
Yeah, that guy's good.
There's like great jokes. And like, I don't think any of them is particularly bad. It's just they didn't balance. He's the one character I feel like they didn't nail the balance. And I mean, like Legolas 2 is kind of like not really a human in this movie, but whatever. It's fine.
Let's talk about Legolas for a second.
Sure.
Because he's not a character.
No, he sucks, man.
Yeah.
Which
sucks
Orlando
because
Bloom with eyebrows. I don't like him.
Well, it's funny. Like
my favorite character as a kid.
Exactly. He was everyone's favorite as a kid. He was so competent. He was a great fighter.
Girls loved him. Heartthrob.
Yeah.
He's just there to be like a badass warrior.
And then,
but like, we
There's
could
no
have
development.
something. Like,
He basically serves as a herald in these movies. He goes up to a hilltop and says something. They're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Yeah.
They're coming.
You know what he's like? He's like a killer android or something. Like,
Yeah,
it'd be like
totally
if this was
like
a
an
Star Wars
android.
movie, he would be like the
that's so funny.
HK-47 from
Yeah,
the Old
and
Republic games.
Gimli would be the Klingon.
Funny Klingon.
The funny Klingon. They're all funny because they take things too literally. I guess he's not hyper literal. Yeah, they're it's funny. Those are my favorite as a kid. And I mean, like you said, you have to appeal to all 4 quadrants, so you need the characters that are goofy and cool and stuff. But as an adult, it's definitely Aragorn and Sam that are my favorites.
Yeah.
And Gandalf too. But
man.
Okay, I have another supporting point for the whole like 3-movie big arc story
Yes.
and how the first one is actually just act 1 of the whole thing. And that supporting point is this. Galadriel in the first movie, she gives all these like special tools to everybody, right? So that is something in the hero's journey called supernatural aid. And it actually usually happens near the beginning of the movie, right after the call to adventure. So if you think about Star Wars, it's when Obi-Wan brings Luke to his place and he goes, here's a lightsaber. This was your father's.
Don't poke your eye out.
This is the beginning of the story, right? Yeah. But in Lord of the Rings, you see it happen like a 3/4 mark of the first movie, because in the scope of the whole thing, that's the beginning still.
Yeah. No, I totally buy it. And I think like what a magnificent job they did making that each movie has a good structure, and then the whole series has a structure. Like I
Right.
can't think of a series that did it better than this.
Well, we did earlier just say that not every character has a complete arc in
yeah,
this
that's
movie.
fair.
But I mean,
I don't find
9 characters.
it doesn't feel unsatisfying. Like honestly, I think the Two Towers works, and like I actually saw the Two Towers first. When I was a kid, I went
What?
to like the Rogers video or whatever with a friend, and like we're like, this looks cool, and it was Two Towers. We watched it twice that weekend, and we're like, this is the sickest thing ever. And we were like, oh, there's another one. We were like, I don't know, I would have been 10 or
And they were
whatever.
theatrical.
Yeah.
They were theatrical.
that's man, kids are so dumb.
Yeah, and so I think that even though we can identify now as adults that the arcs aren't complete in this movie, it's a like very satisfying self-enclosed story that even works without the setup of the previous
It's not
movie.
even. It's not even about the arcs being incomplete. It's like knowing what the hell these people are or what they.
It doesn't.
What they're
But
doing.
like the movie, I think it's like you can very seldom rely on what people know from the previous movies to build your characters. Like even the Avengers movie are still doing character building in Endgame. Like they're still introducing you to these characters, getting to know them more. And like the Two Towers does that too. Like you get to know Sam and Frodo in this movie, even though we already know them. Like
Yeah.
they keep introducing you to them more.
Yeah, and this movie in particular does a good job of kind of like catching you up, even for people who may have not seen it. Like they're like Sam says, Mordor, the last place we want to be, but the place we have to get to, or something.
Whatever, yeah.
And
like,
we're like, oh, okay, so we know where they're trying to go.
Yeah.
But other things I feel like would be super confusing, like Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas chasing after Merry and Pippin, who got captured by orcs. Like, wait, why do they know each other? Like, why are they doing this? Who are? What?
Yeah, but that kind of thing doesn't matter. Oh, I guess those guys must got kidnapped. Like,
Yeah,
you just
yeah,
put
exactly.
it
You figure
together,
it
right? It
pretty
doesn't
quick.
matter. To David's point about whether or not this is like these guys did it better than anyone else ever. It might have been true when they came out, but I feel like nowadays, now we have the phenomenon of the limited series on Netflix, the 10 episodes thing.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
and a lot of them have that same kind of structure. Whereas like on a procedural kind of show, like Rick and Morty or Seinfeld, you kind of have to reset at the end of the episode.
Right.
And the characters have their kind of character traits that they deal with all the time. And sometimes there's some continuity across a season. But it's really with shows like, I don't know, The Crown or Chernobyl or
Bad
something
or-
like that, where you've got each episode, they have to have some kind of little arc, some kind of progress towards their big season progress. And so I think that's probably getting honed now.
That's fair. That's a good point. And I mean, like the industry's changed so much because of streaming, and like, yeah, the structure of how we're presented TV shows is much more like movies than it ever has been.
I want to talk about the fact that the first movie, I remember bringing up a couple points where it felt like really cheesy. And I think that this one had a couple cheesy points, but I feel like most of them were early on. It was either that most of the cheesy points were early on and then they weren't later, or it was the fact that I just kind of got used to the movie and I forgave the cheesy things more.
That's fair.
Give me your cheese list.
Well, the one scene that stood out to me was Saruman kind of like sending his hordes out and making all these plans, and like it was like a montage of like Saruman's preparations for war. And there's one scene where he's like talking to the wild men or whatever they are. They're men, but they're bad men. And he's
So
like,
they're not white.
well, these guys are white. I don't know.
Okay.
They just look like homeless people. I don't know. And they're like, oh, the Rohirrim took your lands, burned your villages, get revenge. And they're like, murderers! Ah! And they kind of like all take off. And the camera angles are kind of like wonky, and it's like the men are overacting, and I'm like, this feels like it could be in like a stupid like fantasy movie B movie. That
I
you,
just
like, rent
assumed
on-
that was a deleted scene.
Oh, really? No, that's in the theatrical.
That's funny.
But then, as soon as I made that note, one of the very next scenes is the scene with that Rohan, the mom, who is sending her children away as their village is being invaded, and I just like her acting is so good. The kid is like crying and it's like really believable. And I'm just like, any cheesy moment that is brought up and that reminds you that you're watching this like swords and sorcery, alternate world, demons and elves and whatnot.
It's 20 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that comes up where it's like cheesy and reminds you of that is immediately kind of like smoothed over by the just quality of the acting and the
Would a
writing.
scene like that have affected you the same way a little while ago before you had a kid? Because I feel like now, like there's tons and tons and tons of TV shows and movies where there's like, oh, his son died, or like their kid this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
before I just kind of like apprehended that, like academically, like, oh yeah, that must really suck.
Yeah,
but
it's
now
a
that
mortality.
now that I have a kid,
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh man, can you imagine just putting her on a horse and like hitting the horse's butt so it runs away and like there goes your baby?
Yeah.
That's insane. Yeah, now that I can like truly empathize with it, it makes so many movies so much scarier.
That's
for sure.
fair.
I don't think that's what it was affecting me in this particular instance, because I was like, I had that thought after the Saruman scene, and then I was like, their acting was bad. And so then the next scene, I noticed that the mom's acting was really good, and I was like, oh, okay, I completely believe this situation. I don't think I was like emotionally affected to be like, oh, that'd be so sad to send your kid
What
off.
were the other tearjerker moments for you people?
Oh man. Oh, I did say
the
I cried,
funeral
right?
for me.
Oh yeah.
What'd
Yeah.
you say, Riley?
I said I did say I cried, didn't I?
Yeah, when?
Mostly during the whole kind of end sequence there.
The Sam speech?
I think the last
That
like
gets me.
15 minutes, 20 minutes. Just like, wait, I wrote it down.
I think for me, one of the most emotional parts was actually the beginning. And it's like Frodo's reaching for the ring, and then Sam just replaces the ring with his own hand and just fills Frodo's hand with his hand. It was
That
just
was a
like,
good moment.
it's just this little brotherhood moment.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, wow.
I love
That's
Sam.
just powerful. It's a powerful image.
Yeah.
And that's one of those like World War I kind of
Yeah.
images for me.
Yeah, Frodo. I love Frodo and Sam. I mean, they make me cry in the next movie, but in this one, it was the March of the Ents. Like, man,
When he yells, when he's like,
flooding of Isengard.
no, not even when he's like, no. And once they kind of decide to go, and the other Ents show up, and the music is just swelling up, like Howard Shore just like freaking
So
killed it
so good.
yet again, and the music's swelling up, and he's like, Treebeard is like, we march, possibly or what does he say? I forget what he says, but
"Yeah,
he's
this
like,
might be the end of the ends or
possibly
whatever."
for the last time or
Yeah.
something. That's not what he says at all, but it's like, that's the gist of it. And then the last march of the Ents, and then the
Yeah.
music swells up. It's like, ooh, and it's like, ah.
It's so good. And it's
that theme, and it recurs a bunch of
Yeah.
times. It kills me. So it's the March of the Ents, the ride out from Helm's Deep when they're like,
Yeah.
let this be the hour we draw swords together, and they like get on their horses with their armor and they just like crash through the columns, and then Gandalf arriving, Sam's speech. It's just like so
It's
many
so
things
good.
in close succession that just like,
Well, that's one thing I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Is how this movie nails the oscillation between positive and negative. So, and when you're writing a script, you want to kind of have a good variety of like, oh yeah, good thing happens, a bad thing happens, another bad thing happens, oh, a good thing happens, and you want to keep the audience guessing. They do that until they're building up Helm's Deep, and there's 11 bad beats that happen in a row.
oh geez.
And then there's 11 positive beats that happen in a row. And there's a break for both, where like halfway through the negative down cycle, there's a positive one, and halfway through the positive one, there's a negative one. But they took this huge slope down and this huge momentum.
Yeah.
And the final positive beat is like them beating the orcs. And so like, instead of doing what a normal movie does and kind of keeps you guessing, they take you on this journey of like into full despair,
Yeah.
into full hope. And like, it, not only does it like work really emotionally, but it works with the theme. And I was like, this is brilliant. That's part of why Gandalf cresting over the hill is one of the greatest moments in cinematic history, is that they invested like 24 beats into this huge arc of negative into positive. And like,
Right.
I've never seen that in a movie other than this.
Yeah, man. I and it works so well with like the theme that they were talking explicitly about too, like hope versus hopelessness. And so like we see these characters struggling to keep up hope.
Yeah.
And then we see them after that, you know, start to lose hope a
for
little
sure.
bit. Like Theoden loses
Yep.
hope, and they've been beat back. That's why I thought maybe them getting kicked back to the keep was important to the plot, because like that's such a low point.
Yeah.
There's even like nostalgic, like flashback low points in a way. Like when Faramir flashes back to him, it goes Boromir and his dad talking, and his dad is telling him that the Fellowship of the Ring things, the meeting at Rivendell is going to happen.
Yeah.
And he says like, oh, Boromir, like, you got to go because you're the best. You're the hero of Gondor, and
Yeah.
you can probably wield this ring. That really got to me.
Huh.
I was like, oh man, he just totally believed in this champion. And man, we know already
That
that
he
he
failed.
was
Right.
like so easily corruptible. It's like, that's
Yeah.
just really sad.
Well, and I love
Tragic.
that too,
Extended.
like how that works. Yeah, it is extended.
Yeah.
I love though how that works to make Faramir a better person. Like he understands the weakness of man, and he lets them go. And he
Right.
like in the end, he even though his father will never love him, well, until it's too late. But
Spoilers.
he in the end, like he is the better person than Boromir because he's not corrupted by the ring.
And yet he's not good enough for some people who are fans of the books.
Yeah.
Because in the book, he really is. He's not tempted at all, and he's not an asshole to Frodo at all. He doesn't bring Frodo to go to his dad. That's just a total subplot that they kind of changed for. Even though Faramir is ultimately good in the movie, they changed it. And I guess the rationale they gave was that it would have cheapened the power of the ring.
Yeah.
If you just had this other dude who was a man who could just be like, I don't care about the ring.
Well, and I think too, like we already talked about kind of like what are the arcs of Sam and Frodo in this movie, and having that resistance kind of provides at least a little bit of shape to that story.
Right.
And so it can be frustrating at times, especially on rewatch, where you're like, come on, Faramir, dude. Like, just come on.
And it's, for me, it was just frustrating. Like, I don't know whether it's because I know, and I remember thinking like the first time I saw this movie, I was like, they don't do that in the book. But I don't know whether it's because of that or just because of the fact that like, it takes a long time. This whole side quest into Osgiliath, like, I don't know. It just annoys me thinking that they are on their journey to Mordor and they're like being guided by Gollum and they're close. They're right on the border. And then they meet Faramir and Faramir's like, no, I'm taking you to Osgiliath. Let's go way over here.
And they've shown us the map already in this point.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, south.
I know.
I like that shot of them showing the map because like you hear all these names, you hear like north, south, whatever. But in that one moment, they're like tight on the map. They show you like Gondor, Osgiliath, or whatever, and then it pulls out, and you get a sense of the world.
That might be extended. Is that
Maybe
extended?
No, that's in the...
Okay, and that's actually part of the midpoint thing I was talking about earlier, where I think that comes right after Galadriel talking.
Yep.
And why I think it's cool is because it shows you like, oh, we're screwed. Like we're getting attacked from both sides, right?
Yeah.
And so often in a midpoint of a movie, it's like the stakes are getting raised.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of just hammers home my theory here.
They go into a bit too much detail. Like I feel like it starts to feel really exposition-y. And I'm like, this is okay. So I see past the veil. I know that this is for us, but I don't know. It is necessary. Like we need to, it's really nice to see that map. Yeah.
What do you guys think of Galadriel saying, what did she say? She's like he'll pay for the ring with his life. And she's talking to Elrond, and like it's like a prophecy about Frodo dying for the ring.
Right.
What is it, like a red herring? Like is it them being wrong?
No, I think it's just that like the prophecy is an inexact science. I feel like it's like
they're like we got
like
bad
Dune.
juju.
But what?
I just told James that I finished reading Dune. Oh no, that's
Riley's a Dune guy now.
That's
Yeah. No, but I know where you're coming from, David, because Riley, you're right. Maybe the prophecies are just inexact, but from the function, like the movie function of it, what is she, like an unreliable narrator now?
Yeah.
Or is it foreshadowing? Like you would think that it's foreshadowing or setting something up, and then it would be a false death, a false defeat.
Yeah.
And like Neo in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll have to die.
Like,
Yeah, and that makes sense because he has to die.
But then he's reborn. But
Yeah.
in this, it's just wrong.
Yeah, I think that's how I explain it. That like magic is sort of a wishy-washy thing, and it's not like Harry Potter where they're like neither can live while the other survives, and then they take that to be like a scientific sort of like literally
He must
one
die.
has to kill the other one because neither can live while the other survives.
I like that stuff in books though, where it's like clever, kind of take on a word, and like then they have to adhere to it.
Well, I don't
like
know.
it. I like it in Harry
But I think that kind of like ties in what we were talking about last time with Lord of the Rings magic, where it's not like they're not shooting spells out of their wands, right? It's sort of like a general sort of otherworldly feeling.
I don't feel like in that scene they managed to make me feel that way. It felt like two powerful elves talking to each other, be like, "Yo, Frodo's gonna die." It didn't feel like it was like full of magic. It didn't.
It's part of the hope theme, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's like they're despairing.
Yeah.
You know,
Elrond
those
is
powerful
despairing.
elves.
Yeah, but then that's funny because in that moment he's despairing and Galadriel is like, you know that it's hopeless, but then Elrond's like, oh, but I'm gonna send my elves to help.
Yep.
So I guess he's not hopeless. I don't know. It's just
I have
thematically confusing. Which is
cast-
also why I hate those scenes. Just
Yeah.
take them out. We don't need them.
Yeah.
Like the elves can show up without us seeing all of these flashbacks about Elrond talking to Galadriel or whatever.
No, you got to set up something like that.
Yeah.
You can't just have an
No.
army show up. That's a Deus Ex Machina.
Well, but they don't even save the day or anything. They're just like, they just help.
Yeah, but it's like it was 300 versus tens of thousands. So they needed the.
Yeah, but they're
that-
still vastly outnumbered.
Yeah, but
their commander died.
In this universe,
I don't think
the
that's a
elves are
Deus Ex.
so powerful. They can really help delay. And I mean, like, they have a huge tactical advantage. They have the walls, they have all this stuff, and they have
Right.
a gate to a sewer that no one has ever thought about exploding before.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
talk
what about
let's talk
those
that.
ladders?
But that's not a Deus Ex Machina because it doesn't
no.
do anything.
Deus Ex Machina typically saves the day at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
So it doesn't save the day.
Like Gandalf would be.
It's just a
But
thing happens.
they've set him up.
They set it up twice actually. There's some really subtle ways that they remind you.
Twice?
There's like this little there's a thing where Gandalf says there will be no dawn for men, and it's just like. Just a reminder. Remember how before I told
dawn.
I told Aragorn that I was going to come in the morning of the third day. Remember that?
Yeah.
So I'm saying the word dawn again.
Yeah.
Don 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 don.
Dawn. Yeah, I have a big problem with the sewer grate that, like, Helm's Deep has faced 1,000 battles.
Oh,
and
wait.
no one's ever thought about exploiting like a metal like thin gate.
Well, it is Sauron who creates the explosives, and he's a wizard.
Yeah.
Right, and it's not like I don't think gunpowder. Nobody has guns, and when Grima is in Isengard, he leans too close to the gunpowder with a candle, and Sauron's
For
like,
sure.
"Get away from
It's
there!"
rare,
because
like-
this guy is doing magic.
Yeah,
It's not only rare, it's his first time.
but it's not about the explosives. It's about that hole. Like, has no one ever thought about using it at all? Like,
well, people can't fit through it. I remember you brought this up in the last podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a huge weakness. But then watching it this time, I was like, oh, the only reason it's a weakness is because of the gunpowder, and no one has. This is the first time it's showing up, so
People
it's
can
like,
definitely fit in there. Like those Uruk-hai are huge. That guy's like 6'4".
Maybe like
something.
a
He
kid.
sprints in there.
yeah,
the
yeah,
grate.
yeah. The
A
grate's
man can't
huge.
fit through there.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's how he ignites it.
Yeah. What are you talking about, you weirdo?
He
No, no, no,
sprints.
no.
The
No,
dude sprints in
No,
there.
through the grate. Like the
Oh.
yeah, the guy
Yeah,
can
but
fit into the hole.
In this
but-
universe, you can fight metal. Like, they have technology that can, like, beat, like,
What technology?
like half-inch metal.
battering rams.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then while they're down there, they just get friggin' destroyed. Like, I don't know. That's
I
not
don't
a.
know.
The only reason that they were able to do
it.
it is because they got
It bothers me much less than an elf surfing on a fucking shield. I'll say that.
great.
How do those ladders work? Okay, because I love the part in the video game where you got to
Yeah.
hit all the ladders down.
Sick
the,
video
the
game.
phase 1 of the video game ladders where they don't hook on, or phase 2 of the video game ladders, or phase 3 where it's the much bigger ones that hook on
I just
the
don't
top.
know how they, like, how do they kind of move in an arc that goes like, zhoop, and then they land on the wall.
They shoot
Do they ha-
arrows up, and
Okay.
then the arrows have pulleys on them, and then they pull on the end of the rope, and it pulls the ladder
Yep,
up.
that works.
I think I saw some contraption like that on the later phase ladders, but on
Yeah.
the early ones, they seem to just kind of float over, and I was like, that would just be a lot of labor to make it move like
I
that.
mean, there's tens of thousands of Uruk-hai.
I think
labor.
it was just cinematic.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
I mean,
I have
did
a
not
question.
think in that moment.
At
how they
one
work.
point, I can't remember exactly what happens, but I think it's after the elf captain dies. Aragorn rides a ladder down into the crowd of Uruk-hai.
Oh, there's so many moments
Wait,
like
And
that.
it's just like, yo, and then they cut away and he's fine. Like, he's not part
Wait,
of,
he
like,
rides a ladder.
yeah,
down?
he jumps on a ladder and it falls
Oh
into
yeah,
a crowd.
yeah.
Yo, he's like in the middle of the Uruk-hai
Oh, I
battlefield.
remember that. Yeah.
What happened?
Sorry. That's like a.
It's such a weird
That doesn't make any
cut.
sense because the ladder is on the inside of the wall.
Why?
That was the inside of the wall because there were
s-
stairs there.
Yeah, why are they doing that?
I don't know why the ladder was
Okay,
there.
sure, but that makes sense why he doesn't land into like 10,000 orcs and get killed.
The orcs brought the ladder in
Sure.
because they were gonna do a whole thing. They had a whole thing set up.
Sure.
They had a big plan.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of that scene when
Oh no. He's
Oh.
an idiot orc. He's like the idiot orc who's like, guys, watch this. This is gonna be so good.
no one's doing this spot? What do you guys think of like this scene when the gate's being breached and it's just this narrow pathway, and then Aragorn and Gimli have to sneak around the side and
Yeah.
jump?
Oh yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I love the scene.
I mean
Yeah.
that little back door that no one saw.
That's
Or-
fine. No, that makes sense. And I think like logically this castle kind of makes sense that it's huge walls, very narrow pathway. That's good to
Yeah.
defend.
I love the little side mission. They're like, this main thing is happening, and now
Yeah.
Aragorn and Gimli are gonna go on a little secret mission.
But then there's something about when they're actually fighting on the bridge. I think it goes to make this movie feel more than the first one. Like characters start to have plot armor where like they're invincible. Like this movie has Aragorn close to death, which is good.
Yeah.
But Gimli and Legolas never feel like they're in danger. And I think that's a huge flaw of the second and third movie. And I talked about it briefly in the first one, that all of a sudden there's characters that won't die.
There's a part where one of them, I think it's Aragorn, is like dangling from a rope or a ladder, and he has to climb back up it, and like you would be like a pincushion.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
well, I didn't think that he'd be a pincushion. Mine was like more specific, like as he's being hauled up close to the top, there's like an angle on the parapet, and they like grab his arm, and it kind of like bends over the parapet weird, and I'd be like, that guy probably sprained his arm, and he still has to fight after this.
No, man, like when you're getting hoisted up, like you would just get shot.
Yeah, there's arrows flying both ways.
For sure. No, I totally feel that. I think that we could have had a few moments where we actually feel like they're genuinely in danger. I don't think that it's like, I feel that I believe that they are as proficient as they are.
Yeah, they were
at
the
killing
chosen
orcs.
fellowship. Sure.
Yeah, which is also why the counting kills works for me, because I'm like, these guys are just so good.
It doesn't work for me at all. Makes
Well,
me
I
so
know
mad.
I know that already. That's why you said that. But I think it works great because I'm like, these are like elite warriors, and that's why I think Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas work. Even though Gimli and Legolas, they don't really have character arcs, but they are just so proficient. They're such badasses, and they joke around. They provide comic relief, and I don't know. It's
Well, I
fine.
think you're right, especially the first time. It serves actually as character building, where you're like, through this action of them playing a game through these fights, it's the movie telling you these people are so good at fighting that it's fine. But I think in 20 years later, having watched Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 4, because anything after that doesn't exist, you have these fights where main characters are
I just got it.
main characters are in real danger, and it raises the stakes all the time, and it's so much more engrossing to know that like everyone could be dead at any moment, and like an arc that you thought was going somewhere could be cut off at any time. And I find in this movie, I start to feel the age of the storytelling more than in Fellowship, where like there's just I see the tropes more clearly in Two Towers.
You know what? You know why I think that it doesn't bother me is because there are so many characters in the series that are in real danger. Like we are genuinely concerned for Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin and the entire nation of Rohan and Eowyn and I think that because they're in Helm's Deep, like things seem dire, as you say, things are at a super low point. So I don't think I do think that it would add to it to like have scenes where we see specifically Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn are in like really dire straits themselves, like they get sliced on the arm or something.
Yeah, or like Legolas is overpowered and Gimli has to save him at the last second or whatever.
I think that would add to the movie for sure. But I think that the reason them having this like plot armor because they're like so badass at fighting or whatever, I think it doesn't bother me because that itch is scratched elsewhere.
That's totally fair. And I think the movie does really nail the cost of human lives. Like every battle, like there's constantly close-ups of people suffering or losing or winning, and you do feel the human connection. That you're right. The main characters, even though it'd be nice if they were in danger, there is danger elsewhere.
Totes.
We haven't talked about Gandalf the White.
Ooh.
I like the movie opens on the Balrog.
Oh yeah,
It's a
battle.
sick recap.
Awesome.
Gandalf the White's beard is way faker though.
Is it?
You can kind of see the edge where it like glues onto his face.
I guess
notice
it has more structure. That first battle with the Balrog, while I was watching it, I think actually I initially had the quality set to like 720p or something. So I was like, this looks really bad.
Yeah.
But then I like changed the thing, the quality later, and I was like, oh, okay, this looks fine. But does it look?
No, that's aged a lot.
Because you guys watched the 4K remaster. Yeah. So how does it look in that?
It looks better than the 1080p version did. That I remember. I rewatched these movies like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Good job, me.
Screwed up, dude.
I fucking screwed up, dude. And that scene in particular was like, oh, that's bad. And like the way that Gandalf was composited in motion on top of a full CG object, on top of a full CG background, it just didn't blend at all.
Yeah.
And they've done some light retouching or something where it's like, it's fine. It's fine now. It's not horrendous.
How much they touched up Schmeagol? Gollum?
My guess is that they re-rendered him in some way because he looks sharper than the movie. He looks more 4K than 4K.
So you can. It doesn't.
There's a lot of
it doesn't
times-
look great.
It looks mostly okay, but there's a few scenes. One of the scenes in the bogs is they kind of miss the focus. It's a little soft, but Smeagol is still like sharp as fuck. And so he just by that
Dude looks sick.
He's like hard enough to hunt with.
Dude is dressed to the nines.
no, but
That loincloth.
like, no
cleans
matter
up good.
how well the lighting is blent or like how well the motion is captured, because he's sharper than the film, he just will always
Right.
He
appear
looks
different.
he looks weird and like doesn't fit. You can tell he's CG, but it's good enough, and you can still really engage emotionally with his monologues, which are
Totally.
or if you can call them monologues, dialogues with the other parts of his personality. They're still great.
I was just gonna say, on the original, on the theatrical version, is 1080p max or whatever it is. He looks great. I forgot how good he looked. Like they did such a good job.
It was
making
state of the
him
art.
look. They made him like. I think this one before Yoda was full CG, and I think it was. This was before Attack of the Clones, or was it? Oh, Attack of the Clones is 2002, and so is Two Towers. So same year.
so much better.
So it makes sense that they both. I mean, I don't
Different
know.
studios,
Yoda
though.
didn't look as well, but he blends in so well. Like
think it
I
depends on
watch
the
it and I'm like, that's a
scene.
real character.
It depends on the scene though, because there's some that are absolutely fantastic. I find the night scenes look really good where there's more directional light,
Right.
And they're like kind of he's shrouded in darkness a little bit more, or they're able to do it. When it's full day, I found the texture is like 3% too glossy
Yeah.
or something. Like it doesn't look like skin. It looks like a little porcelainy.
Yeah, when he's like sliding around in the rocks trying to catch the frog.
Well,
or
that's
whatever,
fine
the
because he's
fish.
wet.
Yeah.
But I found some of the day stuff looked totally good, but there's a couple like in the bog I found looked
So
terrible.
ambitious too. They have so many moments of people grabbing him, wrestling with him,
Yeah.
throwing him.
and that's all so.
I was gonna say, like, one of the first scene with him, they're like wrestling with him. I'm like, this is just them flexing. This is like Weta workshop flexing. Like, look what we can do.
And they
Yeah,
nailed
take
it.
that ILM.
I think
Yoda sucks.
I think a big part of why it works is the design, that he's not human. They're not trying to make it human. He's like this weird, really big-eyed, missing
Yeah.
teeth thing, so that it can avoid the uncanny valley. And I think that's a really good choice. But he's so expressive.
I also thought it was really cool how they differentiate between Smeagol and Gollum, not only in like Andy Serkis doing a different voice it's the same voice, but he like changes the voice a little bit for each character. And then with the two camera angles, like we're looking at Smeagol and Smeagol looks like he's got a completely different facial expression, and the camera just switches to Gollum. And there is one cut where they kind of like show the tail end of Smeagol kind of turning his head to the right to be Gollum.
I think
now.
that's the first cut. So
Yeah.
then it's like very clear that it's just the same guy.
They
And
might-
after that, they do shot reverse shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might have done it for the first shot and then one of the last shots too. But then like for that middle section, it's just like shot reverse shot where it seems like they're really two different characters.
Yeah, they made such a good decision with how they filmed it, because like there's so many movies where it's like a split personality or like evil within, and like they have to look into a mirror and they have this debate.
The mirror.
But it feels so seamless here, like between that performance where the voice is switching oh so slightly, but it works. And the fact that they shoot it like a shot reverse shot, I think it's brilliant, and it feels so smooth. And then even just like crossing the axis in like critical moments when Gollum's having a breakthrough or is giving up. Like, yeah, I love that when
What
he's
is
like
crossing the axis?
So when you're shooting a shot reverse shot, there's a line that
Of
is
action.
Yeah, but it's basically like where their eyes are meeting. That's considered the axis. And so you want to have your camera entirely on one side of that axis.
Right.
And if you cross it, that's called crossing the axis. And it's kind of jarring, and your brain has a hard time placing where you are anymore. And it's generally used badly, where it's just like they fucked up shooting the scene and it doesn't work. But you can use it to make it feel like something has changed or something has shifted in a scene through the dialogue. Like
You're saying you can use crossing the axis
Yeah,
as a tool,
exactly.
even though usually it's just bad.
Yeah, usually it's just like an amateur filmmaker who's not that conscientious, and they did one wide shot totally on the wrong side, and it fucks up the geography of the room. But in this, they're very intentional about how they're using it, and
Well,
very
it's
effective.
interesting because technically they are crossing the axis, but if you envision the scene as Gollum talking to Smeagol,
Yeah, exactly.
and they're two people facing each other, they wouldn't be crossing the
Yeah.
axis. I think that's why it
No,
works.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. Because it does makes no sense that you're seeing the other side of his face,
Right.
but as a shot reverse shot, it totally works.
I
Yeah,
also
I'm gonna have to Google that later. I can't picture the cross. Like, I don't know where the axis is. I don't get it.
It's okay. So imagine me and Riley are looking at each other.
Yeah.
This line is the axis.
That line being the plane where the ray going out of your eye to his eye,
Right.
that's the axis.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I need to keep the camera where?
On one side.
On one side
So
of
you
it.
can't cross over this line.
Yeah.
So I'm on. So if you guys are across from each other, my camera is either looking at David's left side or Riley's right side.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it keeps us on separate sides of the screen so that even though we're in separate frames, if you put those frames together, we're actually looking at each other.
Okay.
Because if you don't do that, then like you have weird eye lines and people are kind of looking the wrong way.
Okay. I get a little more now. I would still like to see an image.
Yeah, heck yeah.
in my limited filming education or whatever, I've also isn't it that when there's no like characters per se in a scene, you just like make an imaginary line somewhere, and as long as you stay on that side of that line, then things make a little more sense.
Yeah, and there's lots of justifications for crossing the line. Like you can cross the line in a shot, so like you can switch your geography by like having your camera move behind a character and go around and do stuff like that.
That gives the audience the perspective, so they're not confused.
Exactly, and like all film rules, they exist to be broken. It's just as long as you do it with purpose.
Okay, so you're saying like if the camera tracked across the axis and I'm taken with it, then I'm still grounded and I know where I am. I have my bearings. But if you just cut to that new location that is now across the axis, I'd be like, ugh, and it would be like a weird edit, and I wouldn't like it.
Teleport to an alternate dimension?
And,
got it.
Yeah, so it's all about having a reason to do it.
Yeah.
And it's fine. But man, that voice. So we've spent so much time talking about voices in the Batman series, and the Gollum voice is maybe the most iconic character voice of the last 20 years.
Oh, for sure. And it's like
it works.
It's an
Why?
accomplishment if you can do it. Because I forget whether I already said this in this podcast or not, but I can't do it, and I'm ashamed of it. But like
It's one of those voices you just have the anatomy for or not.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's like
I don't know.
a
I
certain
don't know what
percentage
it
of the
is.
population can do it.
It's people that
I feel like
swallow
I
dirt
could
as
probably
children.
learn if I had Andy Serkis give me a tutorial or something, like because there's multiple layers there, and he's like, okay, I squeeze my throat, but then I'm also breathy, and there's like a slight lisp, and I'm like, I just need to know what those things are. I don't.
Well, have you spent time on it?
Little bit, not really. I haven't. It hasn't been that important to me to do a spot on impression.
Because that's the first part of it. Is just practice. First, you need to have a line. Start with a line that he says and just try that one line.
Precious.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Precious.
I tried actually while I was driving to work before this podcast. I was like,
Yeah, can I do it? Yeah, my present.
no, I can't do it. Can't do
What's
it.
what's the easiest character voice to do? Yoda? Everyone can do Yoda.
Miss Piggy. That's a joke. Miss Piggy is Yoda. It's the same voice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's a little different. There's
One thing I wanted to say about Gollum was that I loved how Frodo drew Smeagol, and that's kind of why I brought up the two characters.
He drew him
thing.
like a French girl. The heart of the ocean on his naked, twisted body.
Because I think that before this, our first introduction to Gollum, he is in this movie. He is referring to himself in the plural. I guess he's like, oh, they stole it from us and stuff. But I think that it was interesting to see Frodo kind of like give Smeagol a more prominent place. It's clear that Gollum says that he was driving things. It's like we survived because of me. I helped us survive. And Frodo's like, for the first time, giving him sort of compassion. And then Smeagol's like, oh, maybe I can come back. And I don't know. I thought that whole dynamic was so interesting. How like just like extending a bit of compassion could completely change. It's a fictional story, but it was an interesting idea.
Yeah,
I think.
and I love that reading that James had, that Frodo needs to have Gollum be redeemable so that as he falls into darkness, he feels like he can be redeemed. I never really kind of connected that dot, but I really like that thought.
So it's like the part of his identity is lost, and the part that's tied to the ring has taken over. So the more other people reinforce that and call him Gollum, the longer that the Smeagol aspect of his identity is just like a twinkling light, like way in the background, right? So for someone else to come out and call him by Smeagol, it like validates that part of his identity and can come to the forefront again.
Right on. I love it.
I love it. There's so much that could have gone wrong with Smeagol, and somehow they navigated all the obstacles and made it work.
It's still watchable today. Yeah. But anyways, we've talked a lot about the Two Towers. Let's do right by our listeners and follow up on our promise to do a Christmas segment.
All the people who clicked on this Two Towers podcast to hear Christmas stuff.
Well, I put on a Christmas sweater just for it. So.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
All right. I have nothing prepared. So, David, do you have some kind of Christmas thing?
Yeah, we're going to do a list where we're each going to go through and give our best movie per category. I have 3 categories. and
Best movie per category.
best movie
Dude,
category.
already I can tell you've seen so many more Christmas movies than me. I swear I've seen like 3.
Well, that's your mistake.
Okay.
And those are going to be the 3 you pick for the
Yeah,
categories.
one each. All right, let's hear it.
I know you love Bad Santa, so
I do like Bad
you're a
Santa.
piece of shit.
I laughed so
I
hard
hate that movie.
in the theater.
I can't even handle that movie.
I'm not going to say it's good now, but when it
Yeah.
came out and I was like 15, I thought it was so funny.
That's the kind
What if Santa was bad?
Oh, but he had,
La, 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 la.
he has a good heart, right? Oh, yeah.
It's a quotable movie. There's lots of good jokes in
I had
that
to.
movie.
That's the movie I had to turn off. I think that's the most. That's like the only Christmas movie I can't make it through. It like hurts to watch that one.
Really? Is it that bad?
feel like I
Nobody
would-
tell me.
I feel like
I'm
I
just.
would
I'm a
rather-
soft soul.
I haven't seen the movie, but I feel like I would rather see a movie where like Santa's some sort of like, if they're gonna subvert the idea of Santa, like do it in a way where Santa's like a badass warrior or something. I don't know.
That'd be
It's
kinda
not
cool.
like they change what Santa is. It's just about it's
do.
about a mall Santa who's like an alcoholic. It's just
I think the
it's not
movie
about
is
the real
yeah.
Santa.
the movie is the Santa Claus with Tim Allen, but with Billy Bob.
It's not though.
Burton,
There's no
Thornton.
magic or real Santa. There's barely even any spirit of Christmas in it.
I
Some
want to. I
Christmas
want to see a
movie.
Christmas movie where evil man who really believes he's Santa has to stop at nothing to get everyone on the planet to believe in Christmas.
He's just like delusional. He
Yeah,
just thinks
he
he's
just- yeah,
Santa. He's
yeah.
like breaking into people's homes. This is for you.
That's what I want.
What?
That's the bad
That's
Santa.
a dead
I want.
rat.
All right, what's the
love
first
it.
category?
Okay, the Christmas movie that will actually make you laugh.
Make me laugh.
Bad Santa. We did it.
Yeah, for me.
Really make you laugh.
I
Okay.
think Elf for me. I'll go with Elf.
Yeah.
That's like a nice, good, happy laugh. I definitely have to embrace my childishness, and I do. And I actually laugh.
I completely agree with that, but I was gonna say something else. But yeah, Elf is great. I think that Elf does this great job of kind of like taking this super naive person and dropping him into the modern world, and he's like realizing that like life isn't as simple as he thought, and it's all complicated, and there's like a clash of kid and adult themes, but they do it so well, and it's hilarious, and it manages to be completely heartwarming at the end of it.
Yeah, mad shout out to Jon Favreau. That guy is
Is that him?
on fire. He directed that. I watched Chef again this weekend. I love that movie. Have you ever watched
Chef's
Chef?
good?
So good. It's so nice. But he kickstarted the MCU and he saved Star Wars. What can this
can't he
man
do?
not do? It's insane.
I was never that attracted to Elf. I haven't actually seen it,
It's
but
worth
I've
watching.
heard amazing. Like everybody loves it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Will Ferrell just being like, "I'm a child. I'm naive."
But
And
I
it
think-
didn't seem funny
I
to me.
agree, but like I felt the same way, and I only watched it a couple years ago. They nail the right
Yeah.
quantity of both.
Yeah.
Where like he's childish and stupid, but it's not annoying. It's not like overbearing. You're not like, oh, come on, grow up. You're like the people around him. Like, yeah, just it works. They nail it.
It's not like Ben Stiller doing that. Well, okay, well, this is like a meta reference, but you know what I'm. What do you know what I'm about to say?
Simple
like
Jack?
Yeah, Tropic Thunder, where Ben Stiller's character plays like a slow person for Oscar bait or whatever. It's not like it seems you fully believe that Will Ferrell is Buddy, and it doesn't
Yeah.
come off as like stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
There is a Christmas movie joke. You know when there's a joke from a movie that is just ingrained in your sense of humor, and you say like variations of that joke in other contexts all the time
Yep.
with like the same tone or something like that. There's a Christmas movie joke that's like that for me. It's called The Santa Claus, right? Yeah, The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. And it's when the Santa Claus like falls off his roof, spoiler alert, it's like in the first act, on his yard and I guess dies. And then when he dies, he just disappears and his clothes are just there. So Tim Allen and his kid find the clothes. They only find the suit on his lawn. And Tim Allen like looks around, he's like, he's naked somewhere. I use that all the time. I love that.
I actually watched that movie this weekend. Obviously, I love Christmas movies. There's a weird, scary undertone in how the elves move on from the death of the previous Santa. Like
Yeah.
nothing happened. Because we don't know how long that Santa's been there. Maybe he's been there a year, maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years. But like Tim Allen shows
Yeah.
up, and it means that Santa's dead, and no one mourns, no one cares.
Yeah.
They're like, yep, keep moving.
This is like business as usual.
Yeah.
They
for
got no
them.
time to mourn. It's the busiest season of the year. In January, they can cry.
Maybe
That's
Santa
fair.
Claus, maybe the previous Santa Claus was kind of an asshole, and so like
He
now
was
the-
the evil Santa in
Yeah,
my movie.
yeah, exactly.
So basically, Jeff Bezos, look out. The warehouse workers at Amazon will continue
continue on after your death.
in the workshop.
Yeah.
All right.
After the next bald-headed guy.
I love it. Okay, what movie has the best looking Christmas? Like the Christmas you most want to be at?
The best looking Christmas.
Like in their house or
Anywhere, like either in the city, like Rockefeller Place or something, or like just like has that magic of like Christmas shine.
So this
Home Alone because they're on vacation.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say
They're gone. They're out of the country.
Mine was Home Alone too. Home Alone
yeah.
is the Star Trek choice of positive
Okay,
Christmas.
so this is so funny. You guys are talking about the Christmas like when he's all by himself in his
Yeah.
house. That's your ideal Christmas?
No,
Being
I
like,
was talking
mine.
about the family is in France or something. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be way more fun.
Oh no, my ideal is having a big house to myself.
in France.
Yeah.
You're talking about where the family is.
Yeah, I'm basically joking.
Yeah.
Vacations are good. That's what I'm saying.
I just want every Christmas I just dream of protecting my keep from a band of brigands.
Mike
Harry!
from Urukai.
Okay.
No, yeah, because I was gonna say Home Alone too, but I was gonna say like when they're all reunited and the whole family's there and there's like things. But like that's because I have 3 brothers and our family, our Christmases are all very busy. Like we combine with like our cousins or something, so it's
Yeah.
like a big giant thing. So that's my idea of like. That's what Christmas is to me, is like just so many things happening.
People
in
running
multiple
around,
rooms.
Fuller wets the bed.
just
There's
like-
a statue getting knocked over by every
Yeah,
car.
there's just like snacks available, hot chocolate,
Yeah.
people in robes. Like,
Yeah, it's a pretty good
good.
one. Pizza party too. Heck yeah. I want pizza at Christmas. All right. And so the scenario is you've rented a big drive-in theater. Your entire family, like extended family, they're going to show up at this drive-in theater to watch. What movie are you putting on the drive-in theater screen?
It's all ages. Like there's
All ages. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with
kids.
Muppets Christmas Carol
Oh, tell me why.
because I watched it yesterday.
It's one of the 4 I know.
It's wholesome, man. It's they got a lot of great jokes for adults, and it's actually has like a really good lesson. It's a classic.
Yeah, it is a really good one.
So wait, this is a drive-in theater Christmas movie? Is that the only qualification?
Yeah. Well, no, your entire family's here. Like 150 people.
Like
are
that's what
showing up.
matters. Like, well, if it's a drive-in and not a movie theater,
Well,
then they're in their each their own car.
How would I make a decision about this? I mean, like, I'll just say that one of my other favorite the Christmas movies is A Christmas, or was it The Christmas?
The Christmas Story
Is that what it is?
with your shoot your eye out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Christmas Story.
I love that movie for kind of the same reasons you just said, where it's like kids can watch it and kind of get some stuff from it, but there's also a lot of jokes for adults, and I would argue that it's more like young adult oriented in terms of like a Christmas movie, because there are some like there are jokes that kids wouldn't get.
Are you saying I should watch it? I've never seen it.
you should
watch
definitely watch it.
It holds up. I only watched it for the first time like 5 years ago. It's great.
It's
I mean,
great.
I've seen some scenes that are on, like, because it's always
Yeah.
on TSN or not
Yeah.
TSN Sports,
do-
right? I don't know.
TBS.
TBS, yeah, it's always on.
24-hour Christmas Story marathons every year.
I know there's a lamp that's shaped like a leg and stuff, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
leg lamp.
That movie's kind of weirdly artistic because it has no plot. It's just kind of like experience Christmas
Yeah.
through the eyes of a
Just
child.
a bunch of stuff happens.
And it's great. It's such a good take on that. And I mean, like, it's a little bit dated for us. It's like a 70s, 80s kid, maybe 60s.
Honestly, maybe I should retract this because I haven't seen it in many, many, many years.
It's good.
I probably haven't seen it since I was like
Yeah.
under. I probably saw it in my 20s.
Here's another one I haven't seen is the Christmas Vacation, Chevy Chase.
I was
What?
gonna say
Guys,
that as my funny movie.
Don't get excited. I put it on like on Saturday.
Oh yeah.
And I turned it off. Like, it was garbage.
really?
Michaela will stab you. It's like her favorite.
Garbage.
family
It was
Christmas
so
thing.
cringe. I didn't get
Yeah.
very far. I got to the point where like they get the Christmas tree and it's on the back of their car with the root wad hanging out.
Definitely not.
But
a
like
great
up
bet.
into that point, like that's the first like 10 minutes or something. It's like, this really sucks. Chevy Chase just looks like an asshole that he's
He's a
reported to
huge
be.
asshole.
And like, I didn't even get it. Like, it opens with like a car chase. I'm like, this isn't funny. This is stressful. Like, I'm with
But
I'm
I
with
think it
with
is
the family. Where
I
I'm
think
like,
it's supposed to be a comedy of errors. Like, it's funny because all of these things go wrong and the characters are not like redeeming.
yeah, but the
They're
thing
bad
is,
people.
when you're watching like Ben Stiller get crapped on, it's like it's not his fault. He's like trying to do the right thing, and you know what he's trying to do, and it's just like, oh no, it went bad. But Chevy
yeah.
Chase, you're like, this guy, just
fucking-
pull over. What are you
Yeah.
doing, you psycho? Like,
Yeah,
stop.
he's unhinged. And I mean, the era has changed. Like, your father being really mad at another driver that he would endanger your life is a pretty bad thing to do in 2020. But
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe in the 70s, 80s.
Maybe it's because
wasn't
back
that
then it was just
bad.
everyone was like, that's my dad for sure.
Maybe.
Where now it's like your kid's getting taken away.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
I guess I should also say that I haven't seen that movie for a long time. So like,
It's
maybe I
funny.
just completely forget.
But I think most
These might be bad movies.
Most Christmas movies definitely ride on nostalgia. Like, they require you to have some previous experience, and like part of the joy of watching it is like reconnecting those neural pathways and being like, oh yes, this is familiar.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember a rewatch of Home Alone in my 20s where I was like, this is a lot of slapstick.
Yeah, I just watched Home Alone like a few months ago or earlier this
What
year.
the
I think.
hell?
What?
Like a summer watch?
I don't think of it primarily as a Christmas movie. I think no,
How?
because it happens to take place during Christmas, I guess, but it's a more,
What are you talking
it's
about?
a home invasion movie. I don't know.
The themes, it's all about like togetherness,
Yeah.
the spirit of Christmas.
I love that all year round.
It's winter.
I've heard that the distinction between a movie about Christmas and a Christmas movie is Christmas integral to the plot and like is like an inciting incident or like plot beats, are they tied to Christmas? And Home Alone definitely it fits that.
No,
criteria.
for sure. I think I would say that it's definitely a Christmas movie, obviously, but I think that it's also Home Alone, which is like kind of an iconic franchise that has taken on a life beyond just being a Christmas movie. Like,
Yeah, that's fair.
so it's like I don't know. We just threw it on.
Home Alone 2 is pretty good too.
They all take place at Christmas. You're wrong.
I think that you say that you watch a lot of Christmas movies.
Oh yeah.
I feel like I watched a bunch of Christmas movies as a kid, but now my Christmas movies are not Christmas movies. Like we watch Harry Potter and
Lord of the Rings, baby.
Rings. Those are our Christmas
I
movies.
do too. I mean, I'm taking a break from Harry Potter for many reasons right now.
All right.
But yeah, I hear you. But it's not the same. Like I watched Batman Returns last night, and that takes place over Christmas, and like the weird circus people attack the Christmas tree and stuff.
Oh yeah, I saw that on Plex. I was like, at Christmas, like watch this now. Kind of thing. I was like, why?
Yeah.
Christmas is all about weird circus people.
But it's not really integral to the plot. Like,
Same with Die Hard. That's part of the debate too, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can just take that out of it, the movie is the
but
same.
Die Hard, you can't because like the whole plan needs to be at Christmas because there's a corporate party, there's less security. Like it's a little more entangled into the details of
Well,
the
that's
plot.
the same as Home Alone.
Yeah, I agree. Home Alone is
the
definitely
family's gone
Christmas.
because it's Christmas.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's around.
Did you guys see the movie Christmas? I think it's called Christmas Party.
That's like a modern one, right?
Yeah.
But
And it's
the
just a
night
bunch of
before
like comedians.
Yeah, that and Night Before Christmas, they have no appeal.
Oh,
to
I think.
me.
Well, what's his name from Arrested Development?
Michael Cera,
The main guy, the
Jason
Bluth?
Jason. Oh no, Ozark. You know.
Yeah. Bateman.
Bateman. Yeah, nice. We got there.
Yeah, Jason Bateman's in it. And that was actually it was pretty funny.
Was he being Jason Bateman?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what he does.
That's what he
that's
does.
what he does.
He's pretty good at Ozark.
He's either being Jason Bateman or sad Jason Bateman.
It's basically his stress level. You turn his stress level up. And down.
Man, I tried rewatching Arrested Development season 5 this weekend. It's not.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not worth.
Don't do it.
Don't
Yeah.
do it. It's
just,
so bad.
Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Let it
Leave
die.
us alone too.
Oh,
Don't.
nice one.
Listen to us all the time.
Follow us.
Okay, next week we are going to do Wonder Woman 1984. I'm going to try my hardest to watch the first one. Apparently it's not available anywhere.
It's not on Plex.
It's not... Doesn't mean anything. It's not... I'm going to think I have to rent it. But anyway, if you'd like to tweet at us, we would like to read those tweets and maybe respond to you at Carpool Critics. You can also email us at
say it like
Carpool
that.
Critics. Excuse me. We have a new email. It's hello@carpoolcritics.ca
Hello.
because we're Canadian.
That was almost like harmonized.
Hello!
That was really good.
I feel like we should do a Christmas Carol right now.
Wish
No,
you-
just joking.
Aw.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
I wanted to.
Merry Christmas.